Hey y'all, I'm Lucy. My website is paperglitterglue.com, and if you've ever seen my projects, you know I pretty much always do little houses. So for my this Halloween event, I'm going to do the first house is called Spooktacular House No. 1. It's just a little purple house. It's simple. It does have lots of windows. I cut it out with my Cricut Maker, and I designed it so that it's really easy, and you can do it actually 3 different ways. This one, let me see, push it up to the camera, has cutout sections for the siding to make the siding on the house. But there's also a version where the siding is drawn on, so I thought that was pretty fun. And then this one is my favorite. I glued on crackle paint siding, and I did each layer, I cut each strip and then glued them on by hand, but I really think it makes a great effect. The other cool thing about it is this one has what I call the batwing fence, and that is in the bonus file, the VIP bonus file. I really like it. I think it adds a cool detail. So anyway, I hope you'll join me while we make Spooktacular House No. 1. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to cut out our house, Spooktacular House No. 1, in Cricut Design Space. So I'm going to New Project. I'm on the home screen in Cricut Design Space. I'm on my laptop. It's just easier for me to do it on a computer rather than an iPad or an iPhone. So I'm on my laptop. New project. I'm going to upload image, browse. There's my SVG file, and it looks kind of complicated because I wanted to give you different options. I wanted to go over different ways you could make kind of spooky Halloween siding. So that's why there are all these pieces here. And I just want you to note that I draw the score lines in red, even though when they come into the actual Design Space canvas, they don't show up as red. But these red lines are all score lines. So now let's continue. This is the image details page, and this is the canvas for Cricut Design Space. In order to see all my pieces, I'm going to reduce the size on the screen. I've decreased it on the screen to 25% so I can see all my pieces. So I'm going over, this is called the Layers panel. I'm going over to the Ungroup section, and I'm going to ungroup it so I can work with each individual piece of the pattern. And I always include a 1-inch scale square that you can delete when it's uploaded at the proper size. Frequently, Cricut Design Space updates, and so sometimes the screen won't look exactly like this, but you'll still be able to designate score lines and attach them, even if they've kind of changed the way the screen looks. All right, I'm deleting my little square. This design has the siding, the spooky Halloween siding, drawn on. This design has it cut out. Let me bring it to the front. I'm arranged, and you can see that it shows up as a cut line. And if you put it particularly on a dark piece of cardstock, then it looks like the lines between rows of siding. So that's what this design is for. There is a score line on this over roof, and these pieces just go behind to give a little color to the shingles. Lots of windows. This is your fence file. For the Great Halloween Spooktacular event, I've included a bat fence in the VIP bonus packet. So if you buy a ticket for the VIP pass, you will get the bat fence. But this fence comes with it. So let's go ahead and start working with our score lines. So this is one piece, one house. When I click on it here, it turns green in the Layers panel, and when you see this little arrow here, that means it's grouped with something. And what I've grouped it with is the set of score lines. So these little lines are score lines, And remember, I told you I drew them in red. So the color box is red. And again, that's the main clue. That's one of the clues that it's score line. So we go to the operations menu and we scroll down to score. So we're going to click on score. And when we do that, it turns into a dashed line. So these are dashed lines. Now, the other thing that's important to do at this point in time is to select the whole thing. You can either click it or you can click on it over here and then attach it. So that tells our Cricut, our machine, that this score line belongs to this piece. Let's do the same thing with the roof. Clicking on the roof, and you see that it is grouped with something else. So in this green section, so we'll click the arrow, and there's one line. So click on that, and when you select that single line, you come over to the operations panel. You see the color box besides the operations panel, and it's red. That means I intended it to be a score line. So we'll click score, and then we'll select both of them together and attach. All right, it's a little bit different for the, just slightly different for the option to draw the siding on. So I've selected it. It's green in the layers panel. That means it's selected. You've got the little side arrows, so you know that it's grouped with something, but it's actually grouped with two things. First, these lines are my score lines, drawn in red. Go down to score. Now, these lines are actually the lines for drawing on the house to mimic siding. So, and you can see the black box, I drew those lines in black. You can choose whatever color you want when you draw them on your house, but I drew them in black. Then we go to the operations menu, and we actually want to draw. So we're going to choose the pen, and that will draw them on this section of siding. So we have to do the same thing. We have to attach so that our maker, or whatever Cricut we're using, will attach them. This house is 10 by 6 inches, so it's too large to cut out with the Cricut Joy at this size. But it works well with the Cricut Joy Extra. And in order to do the score lines on the Cricut Joy Extra, I use a foil tool, one of the Cricut foil tools, so you can get score lines, so it works well. All right, now let's see. I think those are the main things. Oh, I wanted to explain this. This piece has the window cutouts. I think it's kind of an easier way than have each individual, like the window panes cut out. So I like it because it gives a little dimension. It's like the window is recessed a little bit. And so the frame is on the outside, and this goes behind the house. And then this is what I used to cut out vellum. So this I used to give the windows kind of a glow. I used really nice vellum from 12 by 12 cardstock shop to give the windows a glow. You can skip that step if you want, but I like the color. The other thing is I made an option for you to use crackle paint siding, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But you need to cut out some pieces so you can apply the crackle paint to it. In terms of types of cardstock, you can use whatever cardstock you want. For structure of the house, one of these two, I would use a slightly heavier cardstock, like an 80 to 110 pound cardstock, just slightly heavier, and it makes your house sturdier. You're still going to have a fairly sturdy house because behind it, I glued the window panes and then the vellum. So it ended up being 3 layers, and the houses were pretty sturdy. To make the cardboard base, I used 3 layers of regular cardboard, what I call regular cardboard. It's like the weight of poster board. My cardboard that I order from Amazon is 22-point cardboard, and I actually cut out 3 layers and glue it together, and that gives me a pretty substantial base, and it makes it easy to glue the fencing around the edge. All right, now let's go to the fun part, construct our house. Okay, Let's get started making our first little Halloween house for the Spooktacular. These are the supplies I use, the main supplies that I can think of. Um, and the glue I'm using is Barely Art Glue. I use that for gluing cardstock. And if I need something structural, like trying to hold the roof on, I usually use a slightly stronger glue, a thicker glue, and that's the quick dry tacky glue. I like that. I'm using cardstock, 65 to 100-pound cardstock from 12 by 12 Cardstock Shop. They have this beautiful vellum, this really translucent vellum that I just love. I'm using that for windows. To cut out all my stuff, I use a Cricut maker, but you can use any of the Cricuts except the Cricut Joy. This is just too wide. It's limited to about 4 inches, and this is about 6 inches tall. So I'm using my fine cut blade, and I like the scoring stylus. So even though I'm using my maker, I like the scoring stylus just because it lets me, I don't have to switch out the blade and the scoring wheel. So I just use the fine cut blade and the scoring stylus. For the base, I like my bases strong, so I made this one with 4 layers of cardboard. I don't know if you can see it. I glued 4 layers. And this center, this circle in the middle, is big enough to put a small LED light candle. You can use also LED light strings, which actually are brighter. So anyway, but that's why there's a big hole in the bottom, and it's big enough. The width of the house is 1.75 inches, and LED candles are 1.5 inches, and I think this is 1.6, just big enough for a candle. I'm using my standard grip mat when I use my Cricut to cut it out. That works. You can even use a light grip mat, but it does need to be sticky because you're going to be cutting out some pretty intricate parts. And if your mat is sticky, the cardstock sticks better and it cuts it out better. Okay, now let's go to construction. I'm going to show you 2 ways to make siding. You saw how to set it up in Cricut Design Space. I already showed that to you. And this is the drawn version where the lines for siding are drawn on. And I like that effect, but it's not a 3D effect. And if you know me, I like the 3D effect. So I cut out all these these are like the shadows between the siding. So I'm going to start with this one, and then I'll show you. Basically, you construct the other one just the same, but I'm going to start with the cutout version. To give it dimension, we add some black cardstock behind it. These cardstock pieces are just slightly smaller than the house itself, and that's so that it won't interfere with the score line. So when you fold the house together, it won't interfere. This is the front piece, so there are 4 pieces, and I included the windows on this section because it gives more dimension. Please don't. I'm sorry. That was Luca standing on the computer. I left the windows, I included them just because it gives them a little more depth. And if you're going to use the vellum behind it, I just think it looks better. So that's why the window frames or the window panes are behind it. Just gives more dimension. So the first thing you do to construct the house is to fold along all the score lines. And because it's indented on this side, I fold towards me first, and then I fold away. And if you have any trouble really getting a good fold, I use a ruler to help me. But I really scored these pretty well. And so the lines are folding well. This one is one where it would probably help to have a ruler, just because there are cut lines close to the score lines. Here's a ruler. So let's kind of protect our little cut lines and fold. Same thing here. Fold. And fold here. These I call roof flaps, and they actually help really with the structure of the house. They don't form the roof. They form like a support for the roof and to help keep the house square, to keep the 90 degrees angles. And these are roof tabs. They glue to the roof flaps. So this is one where the ruler helps. So this piece won't fold up funny. And now let's fold on the back side. And by doing your fold lines first, it makes it much, much simpler to put the back piece on. Because you can see exactly where it fits. So it's all folded. Now let's flip it over. This piece goes to the front, and you know that because of the door. You know I like to give you decorative options. And so one thing you can do with the door, again, to give dimension, is you can glue this piece behind the door, and then there's a door frame to go on around it. So if you want to give it a little more depth, you can do it that way. Otherwise, the door fits fine on the front. So if you want the door in the background with a frame, then you can just glue it after you've glued the piece on, but before you glue the vellum on. All right, so let's glue these back pieces. Now, one thing I think is important, and that is when you're gluing layers together, apply the glue to the layer with the most cutouts. Even though the glue says that it's matte, it's still got a little shine to it, and so you don't want the glue to show up. So I apply it to the piece that's got the most cutouts to it, which is clearly this. And you don't have to do it on every line, but it's important to get the bottom done. It started coming out too fast. I refilled my bottle and I have more glue than I'm typically used to. I do think it's important to outline each window because you want the frame to fit well, and then after that you want the vellum to be, well attached around the windows. And you don't have to use vellum. You could actually use copy paper, a real lightweight paper where light shines through, but I really like the 12 by 12 cardstock vellum. It's really pretty and very lightweight and clearly translucent. I chose yellow for this, but I think orange would work well. In terms of putting this on, I mentioned that it's smaller, but it's designed to fit exactly at the bottom. So line up the bottom, these two pieces exactly, okay? And then the windows fit exactly as well. And so you can kind of shift it a little bit. And if you don't get it exactly, the window frames will kind of compensate a little bit. Our first piece, let's do the other three. So you can see how there's just a little gap, and that lets the folds have room to move. So, okay, the next choice is, do we put the vellum on or do we do the windows? I'm going to do the windows because sometimes I'm a little over exuberant with the glue, and I'd rather the glue not be on the vellum. I think I'm going to glue it in the back. Yeah, I like that. Now, let's glue 17 windows on. I just think the frames just kind of bring the whole thing to life. And these windows are a little crookedy. I made them a little bit crooked because it's, a Halloween house. I think you can tell that it's much, much easier to glue the window frames on before you assemble the house. See how this one's a little more crooked? And so I'm getting a frame that's a little more angled. I think they're two different frames in your pattern. They both work. Okay, that's the house. And now let's add let me see if there's anything else I need to do. I don't think so. Now let's add the vellum. And we do the vellum just like we did applying the background pieces. You add the glue to the cutout portion. And I want it to adhere close to the windows, but I don't want it to show through, so that it's tight against the windows. And you don't have to be, this piece is also smaller than the front piece. And so you don't really have to be precise about it. Doesn't that look good? And with light shining behind it, it really just like comes to life. And if, this is too bright for you, like I said, the translucent, the 12 by 12 cardstock shop Has a translucent vellum that's very nice. They even have a black vellum that's kind of translucent. I might be interested to try that during one of these projects. Now we're going to let that dry, and let's do the roof. The roof is designed just like this, with cutouts to give dimension to the roof. Here's a completed one. It's just 2 sections of orange or a bright cardstock behind the cutout. I've already folded so I can see exactly where the score line is, and I can glue these easier. And apply the glue to the cutout portion. Okay, now I'm going to let that one dry. Now we can assemble our little house. So I try to design them so they're as easy as possible. This one in particular is an easy one. Basically, you glue this glue tab, and that makes the main structure of the house, and then the roof flaps fold in and the roof tabs glue on top. So let's apply, and I'm going to, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to use my stronger glue, my fast quick dry, although you can use your Barely Art glue. This is cardstock, so it goes together really well. So one reason I like glue in this case is that you've got room to move it so you can line up the bottom. In particular, the bottom has to be even so your house will stand evenly. Although if it doesn't, remember, it's a Halloween house, and so we can be wonky if we want. And it's hard to make this top corner hold. That's where I often use some painter's tape. Just going to use a little bit of painter's tape, and if it's too sticky, you can like put it down on something a little bit so that it won't stick too much. And yeah, picked up hair, cat hair, so it won't stick and peel the cardstock up. So I mainly apply it, pretty firmly around the corner, but not necessarily the whole way. Okay, now roof flaps go in and roof tabs go on top. So let's add some glue here. And I think you can see, we don't have to be, I get to be messy up here because this doesn't show. We've got the over roof. And once again, if you want some tape, I am going to do tape because I don't want to take the time to hold it. And I don't have to be careful here because, again, we've got the over roof. But I want these pieces to be firmly adhered because they keep the house square. That's why almost all my designs have roof flaps and roof tabs to help keep the house square. And we'll let that dry, and once it's dry, basically you apply glue along here and here and adhere the roof. And then you've got your little house mostly done. There's some other details we'll add. Mostly we'll glue it to the base. But I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll come back to the base. Now, let's add the roof. See, it peeled it up a tiny bit, but it didn't matter. I'm going to use my stronger glue again, the quick dry. Check to make sure your house is square, and it looks good to me. And now you kind of center the roof on, so you look at it and sort of make the overhang the same in the front and the back. And just kind of hold it down. So our house is almost done. We're going to add it to the base. And I'm just letting the paint dry on that, and then we'll add, I'm painting the base. You don't have to paint the base. You can use cardstock if you want, but I always like cardboard and I just paint it a little bit. So we'll get to that in just a second. Let's do the final steps for finishing our first house, our first Spooktacular house. It's what I call like the simple house because it's structurally very easy. And I think the windows make it. I'm going to use my stronger glue, the tacky glue, the quick dry tacky glue, and apply this to the base of the house. And then you'll see on this base that there's less space in the back. That's because I wanted a little room in the front for landscaping. So it's just got slightly more space. Now let's see. Does it look even? I know it doesn't look even on the camera, but it actually does look even this way. Oops. All right, so the trick is don't bother it. You have to leave it alone. So I'm going to leave my house alone. You can squish it down a little bit so that it firmly adheres to the base. And then once that's dry, I'm going to add this little batwing fence. This batwing pattern is in the bonus pack, in the instant access bonus pack, or the bonus ticket, whatever you want to call it. I thought it would be a good addition for some of the Halloween crafts that we're making. I was really happy how well the bats stand out. So we will get to that in a few minutes once this is dry enough to pick it up and move it around. Last thing to do for this house with the drawn siding is add a fence. I'm going to use the batwing fence, which is in your bonus pack. And I'm just going to bend it. This one I made out of 2 layers of cardboard, a lightweight cardboard, 22-point cardboard. And you can do it all sorts of ways. You could just put one across the front and just kind of trim this, trim it to go on the side. But I kind of like it to frame the little house. So let's see if I have enough glue. I was really impressed how these little tiny details cut out so well. Okay, let's do the same thing. Let's see. Bend it right there. So I get one full bat wing on the front. Now let's apply this one. Kind of hold it in place. Trusty painter's tape. And it's almost done. Once it's dry, I'll add some little polymer clay pumpkins. I just made them just little balls of polymer clay, and then I make little indentations and add a stem, and I'll glue those to the front.